Hi, everyone. Nice, it works. So my name is Artem Axelrod. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Misson Space. And initially, when I was offered to be a speaker, I was thinking what to tell you guys. And I decided that I'm going to tell you the full road on how Misson Space started, what was the core team, what was the first ideas, and how we got from basically a side project to the actual space launch. So I'd like to start by telling you about the day the sun brought darkness to the province of Quebec. It was year 1989, Canada, province of Quebec, and a strong geomagnetic storm hit this province by shutting down electrical grid and bringing a 12-hour death to the city. The results were pretty serious. 9 million people were left without electricity. $10 million transformer was just killed. And airports, railways, and Toronto Stock Exchange were down for hours. In terms of the economic impact, well, there are different estimations from tens of millions of dollars to billions, and it's hard to quantify the actual risk of space weather. And in order to prevent such future disasters, at Misson Space, we are now building a space weather intelligence system. But to start off, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what space weather actually is. So it refers to sun activity. And you may know it as solar radiation in form of geomagnetic storms, cosmic rays, and coronal mass ejections. Our personal goal, personally as a Misson Space, is to build an infrastructure that can detect, predict, and warn about those events, and to be able to mitigate them in the future. And one of the core aspects of our infrastructure is the low Earth orbit-based network of detectors measuring crucial space weather parameters. Of course, in these pictures, the satellites flying not on Earth orbit. They're like closer to the sun. It's just a beautiful render, I think. But anyway, how we started. So we started back in March of 2020 with a dream just to build a constellation. We had a great technical expertise. We were young. Myself and Xenia were like, yeah, let's build space is awesome. And we had several ideas on what are the implementations would be in applications. So we wanted to build a constellation for Earth observation services, IoT network. Space weather research was just a tiny, tiny part of it, like mostly institutional or scientific applications. And some on-orbit servicing, which is electroaggregation. And you could see like a render in the middle on the right, where the cubes are just kind of being glued to each other. But why space weather if we had so many applications? First of all, well, there have been no success. We got no success in IoT, in EO directions. In terms of IoT, there were several high entry barriers. One of them was if you want to purchase the frequency, you have to pay a lot of money. In terms of EO, well, there were already a lot of competitors, and if you want to be one of the companies to enter the market, you should have some competitive advantage, and we didn't really have that one. On top of it, in terms of space weather, we got instant interest from institutional organizations all around the world for new space weather data types. And there was also an infrastructure and data deficit for space weather. Well, there are only several agencies that deliver space weather data, mostly rely on aging satellites, and the data is not that actionable. On top of it, we had extensive technical expertise in terms of manufacturing, developing, and producing the instruments for space weather research. And we looked at the numbers. Well, there is an SSA market, Space Situational Awareness one, which is around $1 billion, and it's emerging, where space weather is a part of it. And, well, space weather is actually a global problem. It actually ranks as a top national priority natural hazard by US and the UK. So these are just several theses why space weather. Actually, last week we have been on the online European Space Agency Space Weather Workshop, and one of the representatives from ESA said that we estimate that the space weather market is around $2.1 billion. And we was like, wow, this is huge, because prior to that we couldn't find any exact numbers on what is the amount of space, like what is the size of space weather market. And here are just a couple facts of the losses that space weather contributed to. So in February of 2022, Starlink, which is a SpaceX, Starlink, yeah, it's a separate company, but it's related to SpaceX. They lost 40 out of 49 satellites after the launch just because of geomagnetic storm, and the economic losses that they had was around $100 million. Then we calculated Misson Space that over the last 5 years, there have been lost over $950 million worth of satellites in orbit. UK estimates a yearly cost of unsupplied energy just because of space weather of around 450. mil. And if a severe geomagnetic storm that happened in Canada, or even prior to that in Carrington, were to hit today, the economic impact would account to up to $3.4 trillion, which is around 5% of the global GDP. So we are building an around-the-globe forecast and nowcast system. We focus on in-situ measurements of space, mainly the near-Earth magnetic and solar wind conditions, and highly energetic charged particles. And ultimately, we're building a so-called user-oriented support system to be able to detect, predict, and warn industry leaders about those space weather events. But we had this idea. We thought, wow, this is amazing, but how do you make business out of it? What steps do you have to take in order to validate your business idea? Certainly, there are more than 4 of these aspects that I listed here, but I believe this is the key ones that we had to actually explore. So the first one would be go-to-market. Like, where do you start? What is the starting point? We had developed the go-to-market strategy by analyzing the different markets. We selected different target segments in the markets. We did marketing mix, which is like identify the product, the price, the production, the promotion. Also, the next step would be, look, there are these companies that might be interested in space weather. We need to identify user personas. Who do we talk to? How do we approach guys? Because there are different types of people in the organization that might be interested in your potential solution. So there's the user who actually uses your system, there is a recommender, there is influencer, and there is a decision maker. And for every single user persona, you actually have to come up with a so-called questionnaire, ask them questions, and identify how to approach each of them to reach the actual result. Then the product market fit. Well, how do you reach that? After identifying go-to-market strategy, after going and defining user personas, you go and talk to people. So we have conducted, right now even more, but more than 35 interviews with different space-based companies, such as satellite operators, space traffic management, space launchers, aviation, and etc. And then the business model. Well, after completing all of those 3, we had to identify how we're going to sell. I mean, it's all one process, but you identify the pains of the customers. You identify what they might gain because of your solution. You ask them how you want this thing to be delivered, because currently, like, space weather is in a raw format, but we wanted to deliver it in the software type of it. And when you ask the customer what does he want, you get the actual feedback. And then basically, you just collect those different pieces, and you come up with a business model. What's next? So how Mission Space operates based on those of this work that we've done. So we will collect data in low Earth orbit with our own detectors in space. And as Anya mentioned, Endurosat is our first partner to launch the payload in January 2023, and we're happy for that partnership, and we believe we'll be able to collect data and start actually delivering it. Then the data that we collect from space is being downlinked to the ground. We enrich our data sets with the third-party available data sets. We can bind them, basically, and not run them through our algorithms on the ground to create predictive analytics, forecasts, and alert notifications that can be easily accessed via like API integrations or just logging into our own cloud platform. So traction, well, what have we achieved so far? We have already signed 2 contracts for data services. We have over 15 plus LOIs and MOUs received. We're actually receiving a $150,000 equity-free grant from Luxembourg Ministry of Economy. We have 6 more contracts in the pipeline, 10 more interested beta testers, and we have participated in a huge amount of accelerators. And if there are any startups that just beginning or etc., in my opinion, accelerators, not all of them maybe, but a good portion of them helped us a lot. Helped us a lot to achieve certain things, to give us an understanding on how to progress, advices from mentors, from people in the industry. So this is a full list. And we actually won the DTA competition last year, the Deep Tech Atelier, and we're second place winners of NATO Innovation Challenge in 2021. On top of it, we have already closed our $250K pre-seed round from business angels, and are now looking for $1 million of investment to extend our operations, execute paid pilot projects, just grow, start delivering services. But yeah, again, referring to Anya, well, space, when you're a space company, you need to have space heritage. This is very important. But we didn't have funds to actually launch our first payload to space back then. So we identified what would be something that we could do. And there are several cases, but one of them is actually doing some suborbital flight heritage. So I know Alex saves, they have some educational program where you do some suborbital flights. And this is an amazing opportunity. If we knew Alex saves back then, we would have came to him and like, look, we have this 1U. There is a meteorological balloon that flies to 25, 30 kilometers up there. We need to test it. We need to identify if it works in the stratospheric conditions and get the data. So it was successful. We measured the particles. Our detector is on the far right. As you can see, like 1 unit cube was the logo, blue, purple logo. Roadmap. So as I mentioned, we have already built the detectors for suborbital flight heritage. We got some early customer engagement in 2021. Now, in 2022, we are preparing for our in-orbit demonstration mission with Endurisat in the beginning of 2023. But still, we are releasing our first version of the cloud platform in the fall of this year, to have some first beta testers, to get some feedback, understand what's working good, what's not, where to improve. By the end of 2023, and this is, I would say, some ambitious plans, we want to have 12 payloads on LEO. This is achievable, but it's going to be pretty challenging. Nevertheless, we'll be revenue generating from the early 2023 after we'll launch the first payloads. We'll have our APIs running, and etc. And by the end of 2024, I would say early beginning of 2025, we will have our full constellation of 24 payloads on LEO, which will allow us to be fully commercial, to provide all the services that we want, real-time updates of the space weather, forecasting, alerts, and all the tailored analytics that come to it, such as correction of space weather events with anomalies that happen on board of the satellite. So I believe this is it from my side. I have a minute left. I didn't have any key takeaways and etc. I just wanted to share my our story, a story that Misson Space that we had. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity to be here. Being here is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you were the winner of the Deep Tech competition, pitch competition 2021. How you encourage startups to go to the competitions, accelerators? Did it change something in your way after the competition?
Well, it does change, because when you're actually, it's not always about the price. It's about the recognition. So when you do something, when you participate in several competitions, accelerators, and I don't know, you get the third place, second place, third place, it gives you some boost, because you see that people, that experts, part of the industry, they recognize you. They believe in you by providing you this opportunity to become one of the winners. In some ways, the prizes are amazing. Like there's some money prizes, some webinars, some mentoring, and etc., which also is very helpful, because, look, I myself, our CTO is my dad. I didn't have that much experience in space. And I needed some mentoring on the side from people in the industry that helped me develop and understand how space industry works, and how should I grow, in what directions, what actions should I take to help Misson Space become more successful.
Thank you. You are a great example for Latvian future startups, space startups. Thank you.
Thank you very much.